The wind howled across the red dirt of mining colony Epsilon 7, carrying dust that tasted like rust and disappointment. Pulled his jacket as he walked away from the main settlement, his toolkit bouncing against his hip. The other colonists thought he was crazy for going out this far alone, but preferred the silence. Out here, there were no complaints about slow repairs or questions about why he always worked alone. The crashed ship sat half-buried in a rocky valley, its metal hull twisted like crumpled paper. Had spotted it 3 days ago from his workshop window. Crash sites meant spare parts, and spare parts meant he could fix the colony's broken equipment without waiting months for supply ships. He climbed down the slope carefully, his boots sliding on loose stones. The ship was alien. That much was clear from the strange symbols on its hull and the odd way its panels curved. Had seen a few alien vessels before, but never this close. He approached carefully, scanning for any signs of danger. The colony administrator, Li Jin, had warned him plenty of times about alien technology. One wrong move and you could trigger something nasty, she always said. But needed those parts. The colony's main water filtration system was failing, and without new components, people would start getting sick. He found an opening in the hull and squeezed inside, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The sound reached him first, a low, pained growl that made his hair stand up. Froze, his hand moving slowly to the wrench on his belt. It was not much of a weapon, but it was something. He followed the sound deeper into the wreck, his light bouncing off shattered screens and sparking wires. That was when he saw it. The creature was trapped under a fallen beam, its body pressed against the floor. At first thought he was looking at snow or ice. The creature's fur was completely white, almost glowing in his flashlight beam. But this was no Earth animal. It was huge, easily the size of a grown man, with a sleek body like a leopard but wrong in ways could not quite name. Its eyes were pale blue, almost colorless, and they fixed on him with a mixture of fear and fury. The creature's front leg was bent at an angle that made wince. Broken, badly broken. Blood matted the white fur around the injury, dark against the pale coat. Should have left. Every survival instinct he had screamed at him to back away slowly and forget he ever saw this thing. Alien predators were dangerous. Everyone knew that. And this one, even injured, looked like it could tear him apart if it wanted to. But those eyes stopped him. Behind the fear and pain there was something else. Intelligence. Understanding. This was not just an animal, this was a thinking being, and it knew it was going to die here. "Easy," said softly, holding up his hands. "I'm not going to hurt you." The creature hissed, showing teeth that were definitely designed for killing. Swallowed hard but did not move. He had helped injured animals back on Earth before he left for the colonies. The principle was the same, right? Approach slowly. Show you mean no harm. Do not make sudden movements. It took him 20 minutes to get close enough to examine the beam. The creature watched him the whole time, growling low in its throat. But it did not attack. Maybe it understood he was trying to help. Maybe it was just too weak to fight. Did not care which. He just needed to work fast. He could not lift the beam alone. It was too heavy. Instead, he used his hydraulic jack, the same one he used to lift broken shuttles in his workshop. He positioned it carefully, talking the whole time in a low, calm voice. Not saying anything important, just filling the silence with sound so the creature would know where he was. "This might hurt," he warned as he started pumping the jack, "but I need to free your leg." The beam shifted. The creature let out a shriek that made its ears ring, but it did not snap at him. As soon as there was enough space, the creature dragged itself free, panting heavily. Its injured leg hung uselessly, and fresh blood soaked into the white fur. Knew he should leave now. He had freed it. His job was done. But that leg would never heal right without help, and infection would kill the creature within days. He found himself pulling out his toolkit before he could think better of it. "I'm going to make a splint," he said, more to himself than the creature. "Just, please do not eat me." He worked with pieces from the crashed ship, bending metal panels into shape, and padding them with strips torn from his own jacket. The creature watched him with those unsettling pale eyes but stayed still as he carefully positioned the splint around the broken leg. When he pulled the straps tight, the creature flinched but did not pull away. Stepped back, his hands shaking from adrenaline. There, that should hold until it heals. The creature tested the splint, putting slight weight on the leg. Then it looked at again, and something in those eyes had changed. The fear was still there, but the hostility had faded. Over the next 3 days, returned to the crash site. He brought water in a spare canteen and food from his own rations, dried meat that the creature sniffed suspiciously before eating. He changed the bandages on the leg and adjusted the splint as the swelling went down. The creature never tried to attack him. Instead, it seemed to relax when he arrived, almost like it was expecting him. On the 4th day, brought fresh meat he had traded for in the colony. Li Jin had asked why he needed it, and he had lied, saying he wanted to try cooking something different. He felt guilty about the lie, but he knew what she would say if she found out what he was really doing. When he reached the crash site, the creature was gone. The splint lay on the ground, carefully removed, and there were tracks leading away into the wilderness. Stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty space where the creature had been. He spotted something white caught on a piece of metal, a tuft of fur. He picked it up carefully, the strands soft as silk between his fingers. It was all he had to prove this had really happened. "Goodbye, ghost," he said quietly, giving the creature a name even though it would never hear it. He walked back to the colony alone, the white fur tucked safely in his pocket. Li Jin met him at the gate, her arms crossed. "You look terrible," she said. "Where have you been?" "Scavenging parts," replied. It was not exactly a lie. He had collected components from the crash site. She studied his face for a moment, then sighed. "Just be careful out there. The universe is bigger and stranger than we know. Not everything wants to be friends with humans." Nodded and walked past her toward his workshop. She was right, of course. But as he touched the white fur in his pocket, he could not shake the feeling that he had just done something important, something that mattered. He had no idea how right he was. 8 years changed many things, but still carried the white tuft of fur in his pocket. It had become a habit, a small piece of something he could not quite explain to anyone else. When people asked about it, he just said it was a good luck charm from home. Nobody questioned him further. Was no longer the lonely mechanic on mining colony Epsilon 7. He had moved to bigger stations, taking jobs on orbital platforms and industrial hubs across human space. His reputation grew with each impossible repair he completed. When the main engine on Station 3 exploded and everyone said it would take months to fix, had it running in 3 weeks. When a transport ship lost all power between Mars and Jupiter with 200 people aboard, talked the crew through repairs over radio until they limped into port. People started calling him the miracle worker. Hated the name, but it brought steady work and good pay. He had even taken on an apprentice, a young man named Park Sang-woo who talked too much but had quick hands and a good instinct for machines. "Why do you always work on the hardest jobs?" Sang-woo asked one day as they replaced the entire cooling system on a cargo hauler. "We could make the same money doing easy repairs." Tightened a bolt before answering. "Because when something is broken, it needs to be fixed. Does not matter if it is hard or easy." Sang-woo laughed. "You make it sound so simple." But believed it. Fixing things was what he did. It was what he was good at. And in a universe that seemed to break a little more each day, that mattered. He did not talk about Ghost. The memory felt private, almost sacred. Sometimes at night, when he could not sleep, he would take out the tuft of white fur and wonder what had happened to the creature. Had it found its way home? Did it remember the human who helped it? Probably not. It had been 8 years. The creature had likely forgotten him the moment it walked away. Still, he kept the fur. Meanwhile, in the darker corners of space, something terrible was growing. Heard rumors in the repair bays and cargo docks. Entire colonies going silent, ships disappearing without distress calls. The military said it was just technical failures or pirate raids, but the spacers knew better. They had seen things at the edge of explored space, massive swarms of ships that moved like insects, consuming everything in their path. Nobody knew much about them. They were aggressive and they did not negotiate. They simply took what they wanted and destroyed what they did not. The Galactic Council, the alliance of advanced alien species that governed most of known space, was watching the situation. But they did nothing. Humanity was too young, too primitive, too isolated to matter in galactic politics. Meta named Na at a conference on Luna Base. She was giving a presentation on alien species and their behavior patterns. After her talk, they shared drinks at the station bar, and she told him things that did not make it into official reports. "The council knows about the threat," Na said quietly, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "But they are waiting to see what happens. If they attack humanity, the council will seal off our space and let us die. They think it might satisfy the appetite and buy them time." Stared at his drink. "They would just let us die. We are not part of the council. We have no allies out there. To them, humanity is just another young species that might not make it." Na smiled sadly. "Welcome to galactic politics." The conversation bothered for days. He had always known humanity was alone out here, but hearing it stated so plainly felt different. They were on their own, and if trouble came, no one would help them. He threw himself into work, trying not to think about it. Sangwoo noticed the change in his mood but wisely said nothing. They took a contract to retrofit mining ships with better engines, work that kept them busy for months. One evening, while they were testing a newly installed drive system, Sangwoo asked the question had been avoiding. "Do you think they will come for us?" Did not answer right away. He finished calibrating the engine readings before he spoke. "Maybe, probably, does not matter. We will deal with it if it happens." "How can you be so calm about this?" "Because worrying will not stop them." Closed the engine panel and wiped his hands on a rag. "All we can do is our jobs, fix what is broken, help where we can. The rest is out of our control." Sangwoo nodded slowly. "You sound like you have experience with impossible situations." Thought about a white leopard trapped under a beam, hurt and alone, in the wreckage of a ship on a forgotten colony. He thought about choosing to help when leaving would have been easier and safer. "I have learned that small actions matter," he said finally, "even when the situation looks hopeless." Across the galaxy, in a part of space humans rarely traveled, Ghost moved through the shadows of a city. The years had not been kind. The white fur was now marked with scars, and others avoided looking directly at Ghost when they passed. Albinos were considered weak among the people, a genetic flaw that should have been eliminated. Most did not survive to adulthood. But Ghost had survived. More than that, Ghost had thrived, though at a terrible cost. The memory of a human mechanic who showed kindness when he had no reason to had changed something fundamental in Ghost's understanding of the universe. Strength was not just about claws and teeth. Compassion was its own kind of power. This belief made Ghost an outcast among them. They valued only strength, only dominance. When Ghost spoke of cooperation with other species, of building alliances instead of taking territory through force, the other laughed. Some did worse than laugh. But Ghost had allies, a few who had seen other species up close and understood that the galaxy was changing. They met in secret, planning for a future that their people refused to see coming, and they watched the advance with growing concern. "The insects will not stop with the humans," one of Ghost's allies said during a secret meeting. "They will come for us eventually." "Then we must act," Ghost replied. "The humans saved me once. I owe them a debt." "One human saved you. Why risk everything for an entire species?" Ghost thought about that for a long moment, remembering gentle hands setting a broken leg and a calm voice talking in the darkness. Because that is what he would do. He helped one who needed it. I will help many who need it. The other did not understand, but they agreed to support Ghost's plan. It was dangerous and would likely end in exile or worse, but some debts were worth any price. Back on Luna Base, finished the last repair of a long day. Sangwoo had already left for dinner but stayed behind, running final diagnostics. The quiet hum of the workshop was comforting, familiar. He pulled the white fur from his pocket and studied it in the light. After 8 years, it had not faded or fallen apart. It still felt soft and impossibly delicate. "I wonder if you are still alive," said to the empty room. "I wonder if you ever think about that day." The fur had no answers, of course. It was just a piece of the past, a reminder of a strange encounter that probably meant nothing in the grand scheme of things. Put it back in his pocket and shut down the workshop for the night. He had no way of knowing that across the galaxy, Ghost was preparing to risk everything for him. He had no way of knowing that in less than a year there would come, and everything would change. All he knew was that tomorrow would bring more broken things to fix, and he would do his job the best way he knew how. It would have to be enough. The first attack came without warning. Colony Titan 9 simply stopped transmitting one day. Then Station Prometheus went dark. Then the mining operations near Saturn disappeared. By the time humanity realized they were under attack, 3 major settlements were already gone. Watched the news feeds in his workshop on Luna Base, his hands frozen on the wrench he was holding. The images coming from the few survivors were nightmarish. Ships that moved in massive swarms, blotting out the stars. Creatures that tore through metal like paper. They had arrived, and they were not interested in talking. Earth's orbital defense platforms tried to fight back. For 2 days, the military held them off. Then they adjusted their tactics, and the human ships started falling like leaves in autumn wind. Admiral Dongwu, commander of Earth's defense fleet, gave increasingly desperate orders as his forces were overwhelmed. Tried to call his parents on Earth, but the communication lines were jammed. Millions of people were trying to do the same thing, and the network could not handle the load. He stood in his workshop, staring at the failed connection message, and felt utterly helpless. Park Sang-woo burst through the door, his face pale. "They are calling everyone. All mechanics, all engineers, everyone who can hold a wrench. They need us at the military shipyards." "For what?" asked, though he already knew the answer. "They are turning everything into weapons. Cargo haulers, mining ships, even personal transports. If it can fly and mount a gun, they want it ready to fight." Grabbed his toolkit. "Let us go." The shipyards were chaos. Hundreds of people worked around the clock, welding gun mounts onto civilian ships and jury-rigging weapon systems that were never meant to fly together. And Sangwoo were assigned to a team retrofitting old mining vessels. The work was rough and fast, no time for proper safety checks or elegant solutions. Just make it work and move to the next ship. They worked for 3 days straight, sleeping in shifts on the shipyard floor. Coffee and energy drinks kept them awake but could see the fear in everyone's eyes. They were getting closer. More colonies fell. More ships were destroyed. Earth's outer defenses were collapsing. On the 4th day, a military officer found while he was installing a power coupling on a converted transport. "Are you the one they call the miracle worker?" Straightened up, his back aching. "Yes." "Admiral wants to see you, now." Followed the officer through the shipyard to a secure section he had never seen before. Armed guards checked his identification 3 times before letting him through. Inside, he found Admiral standing over a holographic display with 2 other people, a woman in an engineering uniform and a civilian scientist. "Mechanic," Admiral said without looking up. "I am told you can fix anything." "I try, sir." "Good, because we have something that needs fixing and we are out of time." The Admiral gestured to the hologram, which showed a massive weapon system. "This is Project, an experimental weapon that could turn the tide of this war, but it is not finished. The woman in the engineering uniform stepped forward. I am lead engineer on this project. The weapon itself works. We can generate enough energy to vaporize a swarm ship. The problem is distribution. She manipulated the hologram, highlighting a complex network of energy channels. The power flows are too intense. Every time we test it, the distribution network burns out within seconds. We need a system that can handle the load, but we do not have the technology. Human materials just cannot take the stress. Studied the design, his mind automatically breaking down the problem. What about redundant pathways? Multiple channels to spread the load. Tried it, still burns out. Cooling systems. Insufficient. The energy moves too fast for heat to dissipate. Looked exhausted, like she had not slept in days. We have tried everything. The math does not work. We need materials that can conduct energy more efficiently, but that technology is at least 50 years ahead of where we are now. Admiral stepped closer to. They will reach Earth's orbit in 2 weeks, maybe less. Without this weapon, we cannot stop them. Every simulation shows the same result: we lose. Humanity gets wiped out, and the Galactic Council seals off our space to contain the threat. They are just going to let us die? Sang-Woo asked. He had followed into the room without anyone noticing. We are not part of the Council, the Admiral said bitterly. We have no treaties, no alliances. To them, we are just an inconvenient problem being solved by an even bigger problem. Felt anger rising in his chest. They were alone, completely alone. And unless he could solve an impossible problem in less than 2 weeks, everyone he had ever known would die. Show me the testing facility, he said. They worked in shifts, and Sang-Woo, joined by a rotating team of the best engineers and mechanics humanity had. They tried every material combination they could think of. They rebuilt the distribution network 17 different ways. Each time, the result was the same: burnout and failure. On the 8th day, Na showed up at the testing facility. Had not seen her since their conversation on Luna Base months ago. I heard you were working on something important, she said. I came to help. Unless you have access to alien technology, I do not think there is anything you can do, replied, his frustration showing through. Na studied the weapon schematics. Actually, I might know something useful. I have studied dozens of alien species. Some of them have technology far beyond ours. For example, their energy systems are incredibly efficient. Great, can you get us technology? No, they do not share with anyone. They are isolationists, and they especially do not like humans. Na paused. But I have seen their ships. If we could just examine one piece of their energy distribution system, we might be able to reverse engineer something. Laughed without humor. So we need technology from a species that hates us and will not talk to us. Fantastic. But he kept working anyway, because that was what he did. You worked the problem until you found a solution or ran out of time, and they were running out of time fast. The broke through the last outer defense line on day 10. Admiral pulled most of the fleet back to defend Earth directly. The civilian evacuation ships were already launching, trying to get people away from the planet before the battle began. But there was nowhere to run. They were everywhere, and the Galactic Council had sealed the borders of human space. Stood in front of the weapon prototype, covered in grease and burn marks from yet another failed test. His eyes burned from lack of sleep. His hands shook from too much coffee. Sang-Woo sat on the floor nearby, his head in his hands, was running calculations for the 20th time, looking for any variable they had missed. It is not working, Sang-Woo said quietly. We cannot do this. We do not have what we need. Thought about the white tuft of fur in his pocket. He thought about Ghost, trapped and helpless under that beam. He had not had the right tools then either. He had not had the knowledge or the training. But he had done it anyway because someone needed help. We keep trying, said. Until we succeed or until we run out of time. There is nothing else we can do. Admiral appeared at the door of the facility. His face was grim. "There will be in weapons range of Earth in 48 hours. I need to know, can you make this work?" Looked at the weapon, at all the failed tests and burned-out components scattered around the room. He looked at his team, exhausted and defeated. He thought about Ghost walking away into the wilderness, healed but alone. He wondered if the creature had ever looked back. "I do not know," admitted, "but we will not stop trying." The Admiral nodded slowly. "Then we will buy you all the time we can." He left to prepare for humanity's last stand and turned back to the weapon. Somewhere in this puzzle was an answer. There had to be, because the alternative was unthinkable. Was alone in the workshop when the alarm started screaming. It was 3 in the morning, and he had sent everyone else to get a few hours of sleep. He had been staring at the weapon schematics for so long that the lines were starting to blur together. They had 36 hours left, and he was no closer to a solution than he had been 2 weeks ago. The alarm meant something had breached Luna base security, probably a malfunction, thought. The systems were strained from all the military activity. He ignored it and turned back to his work. Then he heard the gunfire. Stood up, his heart suddenly pounding. The sounds were close, just outside his workshop. Shouting, more weapons fire, then silence. The kind of silence that felt wrong, like the moment before something terrible happens. The door to his workshop exploded inward. Threw himself behind a workbench as metal fragments flew across the room. He grabbed a heavy wrench, his only weapon, and prepared for the worst. Scouts had broken through. He was going to die here, and humanity's last hope would die with him. But the figure that stepped through the smoke was not an insect. It was white as snow and moved like liquid death. For a moment, his mind could not process what he was seeing. Then recognition hit him like a physical blow. Ghost. The creature, massive, deadly, stopped. Its pale blue eyes locked onto, and something shifted in that alien gaze. Recognition. Memory. 8 years collapsed into nothing. Slowly stood up, the wrench falling from his shaking hands. "It is really you." 3 more entered behind Ghost, their fur dark and sleek, moving with predatory grace. They looked at like he was prey, but Ghost made a low sound in its throat and they backed off. A small device on Ghost's collar flickered to life, projecting a hologram that resolved into translated words. The voice was mechanical, emotionless, but the message was clear. "You saved one, I save many." His legs felt weak. He sat down heavily on the workbench, his mind racing. "How did you find me? How did you even know?" Ghost moved closer and could see the changes 8 years had brought. The white fur was marked with scars, deep ones that spoke of terrible battles. One ear was torn. A long mark ran down Ghost's side, barely healed. This was not the injured creature he had helped. This was a warrior, hardened by years of conflict. "Tracked you," the translation device said. "Watched, waited, knew humans would face extinction, knew I could help." One of the others stepped forward, carrying a container. It placed the container on the workbench and opened it. Inside were data crystals and what looked like component schematics, but not human designs. The symbols were energy distribution technology, Ghost's translator said. "What you need, what will save your people." Burst into the workshop, followed by Admiral and a dozen armed guards. They all stopped dead when they saw the 4 standing in the room. "Do not shoot," shouted, moving between the weapons and Ghost. "They are here to help." "Those are," Admiral said, his hand on his sidearm. "Do not help anyone, they are isolationists, hostile." "This one helped me," said firmly. 8 years ago I saved its life, now it has come to save ours." Ghost's translator activated again. "I am called Ghost who walks among others. I am outcast, no longer in the eyes of my people. These 3 are my sworn companions. We bring technology, we bring alliance, we ask nothing in return." Moved closer to the container, her engineer's curiosity overcoming her fear. Is this really energy distribution technology? Yes, Ghost confirmed. Na appeared in the doorway, pushing past the guards. When she saw Ghost, her eyes went wide. An albino, I have never seen one outside of ancient historical records. Your people consider albinism a genetic flaw. How did you survive to adulthood? Ghost turned those pale eyes to her. A human taught me that weakness can be strength, that compassion matters more than dominance. My people did not understand. I was cast out, but I learned what they never could, that survival requires cooperation. She looked at the scars covering Ghost's body. They did this to you, your own people. Some others came from defending what I believe. Ghost's translator paused. I chose this path, no regrets. Felt something tight in his chest. Ghost had lost everything among its own people because of the lesson it learned from him. Because one human showed kindness in a crashed ship on a forgotten colony, this creature had been willing to stand against its entire species. Why? Asked quietly. Why risk all of this for us? Ghost moved closer, close enough that could see his own reflection in those strange eyes. The translator spoke, but felt like he was hearing something deeper, something the machine could not fully capture. You could have left me to die, would have been safer, easier, but you stayed. You fixed what was broken. You showed me the universe could be different than what my people taught. Ghost paused. That lesson worth any price, and debt must be paid. Was already examining the schematics, her hands moving rapidly across her data pad. This is incredible. Their energy distribution networks are exactly what we need, but implementing this, the weapon system would need to be completely restructured. How long? Admiral demanded. Days, maybe a week if we work fast. We have 36 hours. Everyone fell silent. It was still impossible. They had the solution, but not enough time to use it. Ghost made a clicking sound and one of the others stepped forward. I am engineer among my people. I can help implementation. My companions also have technical knowledge. We work together. We finish in time. There is another problem, Na said, studying the schematics over shoulder. Technology is biometrically keyed to their species. These energy systems will not respond to human operators. You would need it to actually run the weapon system. Ghost's translator was quiet for a long moment. Then, I will do it. The energy loads would be enormous, warned. A living being interfacing with a weapon system this powerful. The neural feedback alone could be fatal. I understand. Ghost did not hesitate, but it is necessary. Grabbed Ghost's shoulder. The creature flinched slightly at the touch but did not pull away. You could die doing this. You have already given up everything for us. You do not owe us your life. Ghost looked at him with those pale, ancient eyes. You gave me life once. I give it back to save millions. Fair trade. No, there has to be another way. There is not. Ghost's translator made a sound that might have been a laugh. You taught me that sometimes fixing what is broken requires sacrifice. Now I teach you the same lesson. Admiral stepped forward. If we do this and if it works, you will have saved humanity. The Galactic Council will have to acknowledge what you have done. Maybe it will change things for your people. My people cast me out. I do this not for them. I do this because it is right. Ghost turned to the other. Begin implementation. We have limited time. The workshop exploded into activity, and the engineer began modifying the weapon system, their hands moving in perfect synchronization despite never having worked together before. Park Sang-woo arrived with more team members, and soon dozens of people were working alongside the three warriors, all common purpose erasing the barriers of species and language. Worked beside Ghost, helping prepare the neural interface that would connect the creature to the weapon system. His hands were steady, but his mind was chaos. 8 years ago, he had saved an injured animal because it was the right thing to do. He had never imagined it would lead to this, to the fate of humanity resting on the shoulders of an albino leopard from across the stars. "I am sorry," said as he calibrated the interface. "Sorry that helping you cost you so much." Ghost's translator crackled. "Do not be sorry, you gave me purpose. You showed me that the strong have a duty to protect the weak. That is worth any cost." "The strong," repeated, "but your people thought you were weak." "They were wrong. Strength is not just claws and teeth. It is choosing right over easy. It is standing when others run. You taught me this." Ghost paused. "You are strong, strongest human I have ever known." Had to look away to hide the tears in his eyes. He had spent 8 years carrying a piece of white fur and wondering if that one act of kindness had mattered at all. Now he knew. 34 hours after Ghost arrived, the weapon was ready. Had not slept. None of them had. The workshop looked like a war zone, burned components, empty coffee cups, and exhausted people sprawled across every available surface. But the impossible had been done. Project was operational, and Ghost was connected to its neural interface. They entered weapons range of Earth exactly when Admiral predicted. Their swarm ships blotted out the stars, millions of forms moving with horrifying coordination. Earth's defense fleet, what was left of it, formed a final line. Every ship that could fly, every weapon that could fire, everything humanity had left was thrown into the defense. It was not enough. Everyone knew it was not enough. Stood in the command center on Luna Base, watching the battle unfold on the tactical displays. Park Sang-woo stood beside him, his face pale. Monitored the weapon systems, her hands steady despite the fear in her eyes. The 3 warriors stood nearby, watching their companion prepare for what might be a final act. Ghost was strapped into the neural interface chair, looking small despite its size. The white fur seemed to glow under the harsh lights. Cables and sensors covered its body, monitoring every vital sign. The creature's eyes were closed, its breathing steady as the connection with the weapon system deepened. "Neural integration at 60%, reported. "Ghost, how are you feeling?" The translator crackled. "Pain, but manageable. Continue." Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him could see the bridge of the flagship, people shouting and alarms blaring. "We are taking heavy casualties. They are breaking through the left flank. We need that weapon operational now." "Integration at 75%, said. "We cannot rush this. If Ghost's neural connection is not complete, the feedback could kill them instantly. If we do not fire soon, we are all dead anyway." Ghost's eyes opened. The pale blue had taken on a strange glow. "I am ready. Activate weapon." "But the integration is not complete," started. "It will have to be enough." Ghost's translator made a sound like a growl. "Humanity does not have time for perfection. Sometimes good enough must be good enough." Recognized his own words being thrown back at him. He moved to Ghost's side, placing his hand on the creature's shoulder. "If this is too much, if the pain is too great, you can stop. We will find another way." "No other way, you know this." Ghost looked at him with those glowing eyes. "Do not mourn me. This is honor. This is purpose. This is the meaning I have searched for since you showed me kindness." "Integration at 85%, said, her voice shaking. "That is as good as we can get. Admiral, you can activate when ready." The flagship was taking fire. Could see it on the displays, armor buckling, systems failing. They were everywhere. In minutes, they would overwhelm the defense fleet and move on to Earth itself. "Fire," Admiral ordered. The weapon activated. Ghost screamed. The sound cut through every communication channel, a howl of pure agony that made everyone in the command center flinch. On the displays, the weapon fired, a beam of concentrated energy that cut through space like a blade through water. It hit the largest swarm ship dead center. The ship did not just explode. It vaporized. Thousands of forms simply ceased to exist in an instant. The beam continued, cutting through 3 more swarm ships before dissipating. "Target destroyed," someone shouted on the flagship bridge. Cheering erupted across the human fleet. but in the command center, was watching Ghost convulse in the neural interface chair. Blood was coming from the creature's nose. The readouts showed vital signs spiking dangerously. "Ghost is dying," shouted. "The neural feedback is too much. We need to disconnect." "No," Ghost's translator screamed over the sound of alarms. "Keep firing more targets." The weapon fired again, and again. Each shot vaporized a swarm ship. Each shot drove Ghost closer to death. The white fur was now streaked with blood. The creature's body shook with seizures, but Ghost kept the connection active, kept channeling impossible amounts of energy through a body that was never meant to handle it. "Grab's arm. Disconnect the weapon now." "I cannot. Ghost has locked the controls. Only they can release the connection." "Ghost, stop. You are killing yourself." "Not yet." Ghost's translator barely functioned. Few more targets, save them all." They, realizing what was happening, turned their swarm toward Luna Base. They were going to destroy the weapon before it could kill more of them. The human fleet moved to intercept, but there were too many. Ghost fired 3 more times in rapid succession. 3 more swarm ships died, but the creature's vital signs were failing. The glowing eyes had dimmed. The breathing was shallow and rapid. "That is enough," shouted. "Ghost, you have done enough. Release the connection." "One more," Ghost whispered through the translator. "The command ship, I see it. One more shot." "You will die." "Then I die saving millions. Good trade." Ghost fired one final time. The beam hit the command ship, the massive vessel that coordinated the entire swarm. It exploded in a cascade of secondary detonations. Without their central command, the remaining ships began to scatter, their coordination broken. Ghost released the neural connection and collapsed. Caught the creature before it hit the ground. Ghost was barely breathing, barely conscious. The fur that touched was cold, too cold. "Get medical here now," Park Sang-woo screamed into his communicator. "Human medicine will not work on physiology," one of the warriors said. But there was something in its voice that had never heard before, genuine fear. "Then we make it work," said flatly. He looked at. "You know how to integrate technology with human systems. We do the same thing with medicine. We combine both." "That is insane. We have no data, no testing." "We fix what is broken," interrupted. "I do not care if it should be impossible. We do it anyway." For the next 6 hours, worked with a medical team and the warriors to create a treatment that should not exist. They combined human medical technology with healing techniques. They used parts from the weapon system to monitor Ghost's unique physiology. They made up procedures as they went, trusting instinct and desperation more than science. It should not have worked. Every doctor said so. Every calculation said Ghost would die. But Ghost did not die. Slowly, impossibly, the vital signs stabilized. The breathing steadied. The pale eyes opened again, though the glow was gone. "You should have let me die with honor," Ghost's translator whispered weakly. Covered in blood and exhausted beyond measure, laughed. "You fixed my species. Now I fix you. We are even." On the tactical displays that were retreating, the human fleet had won. Earth was saved. And for the first time in the history of galactic politics, the Galactic Council sent a message to humanity. They wanted to talk. 3 months later stood in his workshop on Luna Base. It looked almost like it had before the war, clean, organized, full of broken things waiting to be fixed. But there were new additions. A sleeping mat in the corner, sized for something larger than a human, a water dish. And currently occupying half of his workspace, a white leopard-like creature that was supposed to be resting but kept trying to help with repairs. "You are supposed to be recovering," said, gently pushing Ghost away from the engine component he was working on. "Bored," Ghost's translator replied. The creature had recovered most of its strength, though the scars would never fully fade. "Also, you are doing that wrong. I have been a mechanic for 20 years. And I have been working with energy systems for 10. Trust me, That connection angle is inefficient. Sighed but adjusted the connection. The readout immediately improved. Fine, you were right. Ghost made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. Usually am. Park Sang-woo entered carrying food. He had gotten used to having it in the workshop, though it had taken some time. Brought lunch, though I am not sure what Ghost eats anymore, human food or rations. Both bad, Ghost replied, but we'll eat anyway. The Galactic Council had officially invited humanity to join, not as junior members but as equals. The fact that one human had saved and that had then saved humanity, had forced every species to reconsider their assumptions. Several other isolated species had reached out, inspired by Ghost's story to challenge their own isolation. Ghost had been offered full pardon by the people. They wanted their outcast to return, to share the honor of saving a species. Ghost had declined. Why stay here? Had asked when Ghost made the decision. You could go home, be welcomed back. This is home, Ghost had replied simply. My people want me now because I am useful. You wanted me when I was broken and useless. That is the difference. Now Ghost spent days in its workshop, helping with repairs and arguing about mechanical theory. At night, the creature slept in the corner, occasionally making soft sounds that might have been dreams or might have been contentment. Na visited regularly, studying the partnership between human and with fascination. You two are the foundation of a new era, she told them. The first true alliance between species based on mutual respect and compassion. We are just fixing broken things, replied, but he smiled when he said it. Young mechanics came to the workshop now, hopping to meet the famous miracle worker and his even more famous companion. Taught them the same lessons he had learned long ago in a crashed ship on a forgotten colony. We fix what is broken, he told them. Machines, ships, bridges between species, it does not matter. The method is the same. You have to care enough to try. You have to see past what is to what could be. And sometimes the smallest act of kindness becomes the thing that saves everything. Ghost would watch these lessons from the corner, pale eyes tracking the young students. Sometimes the translator would activate with a single word, truth. One evening, after everyone else had left, pulled the white tuft of fur from his pocket. He had carried it for 8 years, his only proof that Ghost had existed. Now he did not need proof anymore. Do you want this back? He asked, holding it out. Ghost looked at the fur for a long moment. Then, no, you kept it, you remembered. That matters more than you know. When I was alone, cast out by my people, I remembered that someone had cared enough to save me. It gave me purpose. You gave humanity purpose, said. You showed us we could be more than alone in the universe. We showed each other. Ghost moved closer, resting its large head against his shoulder. One broken human, one broken. Together we fixed everything. Put the white fur away and went back to work. There was an engine that needed calibrating, and Ghost insisted they should adjust the power coupling first. They would argue about it for an hour, eventually compromise on a solution neither had originally considered, and the engine would run better than it ever had. Outside the workshop, humanity was building alliances, joining the galactic community, and starting a new chapter in its history. But in this small space, surrounded by tools and broken machines and the quiet companionship of an unlikely friendship, had everything he needed. He fixed what was broken, and sometimes what you fixed ended up fixing you right back.